What's up, everybody? I know it's been a minute since we had a dialectic, so I know a lot of y'all ain't expecting it, so we only got a few people in, but I'm sure y'all will catch it at the VOD if you don't catch it right now. So I'm actually gonna get a little personal with this. I'm gonna talk with one of my comrades that I've been built with for years, Phil, and we're gonna talk about one how they became a lawyer and what led to them getting there, as well as I'm sure y'all, if you've been around long enough, heard about a court case where I got tasered in court and all that fun stuff for cop watching and some more stuff. So we're gonna go into that and how we actually run that Supreme Court case, and actually what the judge said as well. So yeah, let me go ahead and man, this is the smallest amount of people I've seen thus far. Okay, but I'm sure y'all will pop in over time because I know y'all weren't expecting it because it's been a minute. But let me welcome Phil to the stage real quick. Like, how you doing, Phil?
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's been a long time. It's been a long time.
Yeah, where are you these days, man?
Right now, I'm in Texas. I was on tour for a good year doing organizing and music, and then I had some heart issues, so I had to take a moment to sit down. I'm actually going to be coming to Seattle probably next month, so maybe I can see you if you're still up there. Sure.
Yeah, I'm actually in Tacoma these days, but not too far, right? So.
Yeah, I actually got licensed these days, so I can actually drive down there and say what's up.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, well, definitely hit me up when you're in town. But hey, yeah, thanks for inviting me to be on here. It's the first time I've ever done a live stream, so apologies if that's if I'm missing any etiquette or anything like that. But yeah, like you said, there was a wild fucking case, or
Yeah, man. Before we get into the case, you want to talk about how you actually got into becoming a lawyer? Because I feel like that was pretty interesting as well, to be real with you, and how you went from an anarchist to a lawyer with while maintaining actual good practice and character. So, which is super rare. Let's be real.
I'm glad to hear that at least someone out there still thinks I have a good practice and character. No, but thank you. Yeah, so no, yes, the story of how I became a lawyer is really wild. I was going to college in Olympia, Washington at the Evergreen State College. And at that time, there was a bunch of anti-war stuff going on. This was like 2007. So, there's a lot of there's anti-war stuff going on still in the Pacific Northwest, at least. And one of the big things that we've been doing that folks have been doing for a while, as what was called at the time port militarization resistance, which basically meant trying to disrupt the shipment of military equipment and people through some of the big ports in the area. Specifically, Port of Tacoma was the one that they were using a lot. Then there's Port of Olympia, and then where my story started was a protest at the Port of Aberdeen. Which is famous for being the home of Nirvana and not a whole lot else. I'd moved to Olympia just a few months before this all happened. I want to say it happened in I don't know, maybe like June. I don't remember what month it was anymore. But basically, there's protests going on at the Port of Aberdeen, or Port of Grace Harbor. In Grace Harbor County, which is about an hour drive from Olympia. And so I had a car. I was helping carpool out there. And so I went out there one day. We had our protests. There weren't a whole lot of people, and there's a really big law enforcement presence. So I didn't get as rowdy as previous port militarization resistance protests had been. But, it would have been... It would have been a little bit foolish, I think, if we had tried to start, doing anything more at that point. But anyway, so, that was on a Saturday. The next day I came back and drove back out there. And as I'm driving out to the protest, on this kind of rural highway, 2 lanes each direction, there's a few bridges over the top for exits and stuff. And so over on one of those bridges, like this overpass, there's a bunch of cop cars there. And so, I had a few friends in my car with me, and we went under that. I'm like, oh, haha, the cops are looking for us. Oh no. And then 3 cop cars just pull up onto the freeway and start following me, which was kind of like, oh shit, I guess they are looking for us. And so I drive a few miles down the road. Basically, the short of it is that I get arrested for a DUI despite passing breathalyzer, passing field sobriety tests. Also, being stone cold sober at the time. So I got arrested for DUI. It was kind of wild. It took a while to get dismissed, but that's kind of it. So then I wound up deciding to sue the government for that false arrest because, there's the blood work came back negative. There's nothing in my system. And then we noticed in the discovery from the court case that that there had been an alert placed on my vehicle at some point to attempt to locate the vehicle because the vehicle contained known anarchists.
So we love that.
Yeah. Well, it was wild is that I just moved to town and never been even arrested before, so I certainly wasn't the known anarchist. So yeah, it's just real wacky. But luckily the case got dismissed. That's great. But then when I filed my lawsuit, it was just kind of this little, the kind of, just the normal lawsuit process, just kind of dragging through. The government was dragging its feet on responding to stuff. It was just a normal thing. And then kind of separately, me and my friends found out that a buddy of ours who we knew as John Jacobs was actually John Towery, who worked for the Force Protection Division of Fort Lewis, which was the fort that a lot of these the military equipment that we were protesting the shipment of. It was all coming from Fort Lewis, and so he had actually infiltrated like the anti-war and anarchist scene, and really infiltrated. We had no clue for a really long time, and it was, and it was hard, but like a lot of people were like, we thought we were friends with him, he'd hung out with he'd hang out with us and stuff, like he'd gone gun shopping with people, like stuff like this, which was just.
Do you feel like that was like an attempt to get more like entrapment cases by you doing the gun shopping and all that stuff?
I wasn't personally involved in all that, so I can't really say. I could have been just him trying to be, just trying to like be cooler with us. I will say that no one went to jail because of anything he did. He he was, if he was trying to entrap us, he was doing a very, very bad job at it. But then on the other hand, he's also doing a really bad job of infiltrating because we busted him. And so yeah, we figured that out, and all of a sudden, that made my case get really interesting, and I wound up settling the case for about $170,000. Yeah, and I graduated from college about around the time that settlement happened. This was in the middle of the big 2008 recession time, and so I didn't really know what else to do. Didn't want to just spend the money on something frivolous, and so I decided to go to law school. And that's kind of how I decided to become that's how I became an attorney. That's how that's really what made me want to be kind of push me over the edge to go to law school, is because I was going to be able to pay for it with the money I got from suing the police.
Which, by the way, ends up saving my ass a little bit later.
That worked out for a lot of us, right?
Man, I'm still shocked that I was like, it's still a trip that I was like your first case, right? Like, wasn't that the thing?
Yeah, your case was literally the first case that I ever signed my name to as like a member of the Washington State Bar Association. I just graduated, and it was me and my buddy Mike, who I think you met a couple times.
Yeah.
I was me and my buddy Mike, and we were just horrified by what had happened in your trial.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's like really, really bad. As well as bogus charges to begin with, and then just the charges were nonsense. But then what happened at the actual trial and the sentencing was also nonsense, and we had to deal with that same judge for months afterwards.
Facts. And for people who don't know, I mean, I've had a story time, but you got to go to the Patreon for that because it's archived at this point because they didn't get enough views or whatever. But if y'all want to see that, y'all can become Patreon, check it out. But like I go into it, I end up getting tasered in court and some more stuff behind a BS case where the cops tried to have me attacked by a group of people because I was cop watching them, and I defended myself, pulled out a knife, and backed away from everybody, used it as like a shield almost.
Yeah, they were chasing you with skateboards. Like they were
skateboards. Like, they had knives too. They were trying to hit me with smileys. It was pretty wild. There was like 30 of them. 20. That might be a little bit better. Like 15 to 20 of them. But still, it's like a mob. So I'm just regardless. 20 to 30 doesn't seem that big of a jump once you have that many people after you. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and still just one and against one of you. Like it wasn't like a bunch of people. You know, it was just you.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the craziest things about it too was like when I was like backing away I backed away for like 2 blocks up in the Pacific Place. It wasn't like I was right there by it or anything. And you know, one thing I learned real quick, like, is people won't help you. Like even when people they won't even put the car in the way. They're like, oh, I don't want my car damaged. Let this person die type stuff. It was kind of wild, but which led to of course the court case itself, which you know was literally you would expect to see in the Black Panther court docs, not like average day activists, you know what I mean? But it was pretty wild, including like me being tasered in court, them threatening to specifically if people say like arms length apart so they could figure out if anybody gasped at all at how atrocious it was, that they could hold them in contempt of court. It was like it was wild. It was wild. It was like literally up there with a lot of what the Panthers went through, except it was frivolous charges, right? The Panthers had serious charges, but they were trying to turn these frivolous charges into serious charges. Like I think of the sentencing, they wanted to give me 16 months, I think it was, when I had to go on an appellate bail to not end up in jail for 16 months while we appealed. If I remember right.
Was it 6? I thought it was somewhere around like 60 to 90 days with a suspended time hanging over here. Either way, this was all what 10 years ago now.
It's a minute. No, I was pretty sure it was like 16 months in. I think they were really they wanted me to sit for a minute. You know what I mean? And
your memory is obviously gonna be better than mine at this point.
They wanted me to. We got on an appellate bail. It was like the big thing because they weren't trying to suspend nothing. The judge was mad because I called him a fascist in court. You know what I mean? I mean, he was, but I called it to his face. I was like, man, you're a fascist. And, I kind of went off after they tasered me. I went off and told him off just about this nation, this country, and himself. You know what I mean? So,
and I remember when we were trying to post the appellate bail, we're like, oh yeah, no, we can't take cash for it. It's like, how can you not take cash for bail? I remember it was like this whole thing, like a rush at the last minute too,
Yeah.
But anyway, that was wild.
They wanted to keep the money. That's why they wanted to keep like that 10% or whatever if we had to do with the whole thing. And we're like, no, we're gonna pay the whole thing so it all comes back. No, we ain't doing none of this. You ain't keeping squat. I mean,
because I mean that's that gets to be real money, right?
Yeah, for real. Like it's either like we put. I think what was like. I can't remember what it was. Was it 10 or was it 16? I can't remember what 15 or something. I don't know. Something it was up there. There's a lot of money, and then one thing is you got to put 10% up, so it would have been at least 1,000. I think it was more than that. I think it was like 15. No, it was like 15 or 16,000. I remember because it was the same. It was the same as the dope charges back in the day when I caught, and those were like 16,000. So like I remember like, God, this is a misdemeanor. Are you kidding me?
That's the wildest part, is that this is all municipal court misdemeanor charges and like just so out of proportion, for like anything.
Yeah, it was like one of those things where like I dare to fight them on it, so like they're gonna punish me as hard as they can. And it was like, all right, well I'm gonna run this because I mean it's one of those things when you try to flex on an average activist, maybe, but like you're flexing on an ex-con, and I'm like, dog, I've done more time than that. Like if it all comes down on principle, I'll just take that sentence. If it really comes down to that, I'd rather stand on mine and like take the hard hit than just bow to these fools. But I thought I roasted for a minute. I'll be real with you. And you're literally one of the walking examples of what I say about like with lawyers. Like it's better to have a lawyer that gives a fuck about you than a lawyer that's supposed to be an expert or something, right? Because you were brand new, you were spanking new, but because you were invested, you did all the work. You know what I mean? Versus somebody who might be really experienced would probably just kind of do it like I got other cases to worry about type shit, you know what I mean? So man.
And I mean, what was wild was just what kind of bugged me about your case was that like the problems with it were so obvious, but no one would do anything about it. Um, that's always wild to me. That's like what struck me as, not only like the fact that the case was brought to begin with, but then like the legal errors in the course of the trial were just outrageous.
Yeah, man. I felt like it was on purpose. I mean, my original public defender that I got was actually going to be pretty solid, and then they pulled him off my case and gave him to somebody else because it was like conflict of interest or whatever, and gave me a lawyer who didn't give no shits at all. He was not even close to trying. You know what I mean? I was like, bro. And like, I literally told him to do certain things, and then he just refused to do it. Like, you know what I mean? As far as defense. And I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
But then you popped up after I got convicted and tased and some more stuff.
Yeah,
and,
I don't think I was an attorney by the time at the point the trial happened.
Nah, but it still, even at that though, like, I don't know, the way you showed up was like a miracle, to be real with you, because I didn't know what was gonna go. I was like, man, I'm probably gonna just do this, end up having to do this time. I mean, I'm gonna try to fight it until I can't fight it no more. And I remember a few things of the having to go up and up and up. If you want to like describe it better than I can, because I was there, but it was like I wasn't like the lawyer looking through like each piece of it. I was at that point. I was just trying not to even be involved and just hear what happens. You know what I mean? Because I was like, man, it's too much.
Well, I mean, and that's not that's one of the nice things about doing appeals is that there's nothing you can do or say at that point to really change any of that, right? We're just working off of how the court screwed up. Feel free to cut me off if it's too lawyer jargon ish, but basically we appealed from the municipal court to the superior court, which they pretty much we argued a few different issues, but we wound up narrowing it. We argued a few different issues. The first court just completely shut us down, and barely, I don't think really took a look at what we were saying. And then so we wound up appealing from there to the Court of Appeals, who just refused to hear the appeal to begin with. Like they just said, nope, not even going to consider it, because we had the right to the appeal for the first court, but everything after that was what we call discretionary review. So they don't have to grant it. They only grant it if they think there's a good reason. So after the Court of Appeals shot us down, we tried again, and we wound up. And so it was a long shot, last ditch, but we didn't have any other choice but to appeal to the Washington Supreme Court. I'll be frank. It's exceedingly rare to get a case on review accepted. It only happens every once in a while. They do maybe like 100, 150 cases in a year.
I thought I was done at that point. I was like, damn. So.
I mean, I'll tell you that I thought that the odds were very stacked against us. But what was it? But then they wound up taking review, which was, a really pleasant surprise to me. But then also meant that I had to figure out what the hell I was doing with a Supreme Court appeal at that point. And they wound up taking review only on one issue, which was the issue of racial discrimination in jury selection. And just for a really quick background, basically I think in the 1980s or so, there was a case, I want to say 1985 maybe, from the United States Supreme Court called Batson versus Kentucky, where they established the principle that you can't strike a juror from a jury using what's called peremptory challenge, which is a challenge that you can use for any reason. You can't do that for racially discriminatory reasons. So that was the law. That was the case law that came down in the 80s. But then it just didn't have teeth. It basically became a bar on if the prosecutors would be able to strike people of color left and right, as long as they could say literally anything other than, oh, he's a person of color. So, excuses were, oh, they live in a high crime area. Oh, they've had negative interactions with the police before. Like, oh, they have family members incarcerated. Oh, they were, they didn't seem engaged with the proceedings. Like just whatever flimsy pretext reasons that they could come up with, and the courts just kept approving it. The courts were just saying, "Oh yeah, no, that's okay, yep," because it really just basically had to say. It was basically if you could say anything other than "I'm striking them because of their race," then it was going to be okay. So it was really no protection at all.
Facts. And I mean, I think one of the things I remember that made it really, really obviously where they effed up is they made it really clear it was about race a couple times, right? They were like really clearly just struck. They're like, oh, that's a black person, get them out of here. You know what I mean? Because especially in the context, it was around the time of BLM and stuff first starting up. So it was like people were getting more and more aware of the racial discrimination that was happening in the court systems and by the police. And the prosecutor was just so blunt and blatant about it that they were kicking out anybody who would give me at all a fair trial, especially black folks. Like all the black folks got X'd out quick as hell because like, oh, they're going to see another black person and they're going to actually listen to what's really going on. You know what I mean? So.
And there was, I know that our appeal focused on one specific black juror. I believe the last black juror in the court on the jury panel at that point. And the question was, had he ever had a negative experience with the police? And he basically talked about how, he got, I think, like thrown up against a cop car in Capitol Hill one time because he like fit the description of a suspected burglar or something. Then they just like never ran it, like frisked him, didn't run his ID or anything, and then let him go. Which, is kind of just like he basically just talked about having straight up been racially profiled, and talked about that was the reason that that he'd had a negative experience with the police, and that was the basis that they used to strike him. Which you can't tell me that's not about race. You can't tell me that's not based on race. But then the judge, the judge kind of compounded the problem here. Because he said, no, it's okay. There's other people of color on the jury, so it's diverse enough.
Yeah, it's the POC argument. Look, it's people of color. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which on the what it just has no bearing on whether they're striking that particular juror because he's black. It was just completely off base.
And it's like they act like, let's be real, like it's not like other people of color don't be anti-black as hell. Like so it's like the idea that there's other people of color, so it negates like jury of your peers, man. Your peers, like well, there are other black people in that jury, and you're just keeping them out because you know that specifically we get profiled, attacked, and harassed by police at like overwhelming rates. So like you're just striking them out based off of that. From my perspective, I want to hear more from your legal perspective because I know like you were behind the scenes looking at all the paperwork and watching how the judges react and everything. I remember you told me a specific thing. I'm gonna let you tell the audience at some point about what the judge said at the end. But
oh yeah, are you talking about the argument at the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
And so so I I was kind of like, what the hell am I doing here now that the state Supreme Court had accepted review. And so, wrote our brief, got some really awesome outside organizations involved, like the Lauren Miller Bar Association, which is the Black Bar Association in Washington. I think ACLU got involved. A lot of people that were critical of, the racism in the criminal legal system. So then we had to do oral argument in front of the state Supreme Court down in Olympia. And that was, I'll admit it now, but that was terrifying. Because I had, this was literally the first case I'd ever taken, but it also gone a lot farther than I think any of us expected it would, by the Supreme Court even taking review of the case, like that was, at that point it was going to be a wild ride no matter what. And then, shockingly enough, the the state Supreme Court just really seemed to buy our arguments, you know, and you know, the other side, the city of Seattle, well, their arguments got them in a little bit of trouble, I would say, with the court. Because I think at one point they tried to defend you know, the fact that it was a diverse jury, you know, and then and tried to like argue that there wasn't really a problem of like of if the only available black juror had been kicked off because there are vaguely possibly other people of color on the jury, and then one of the judges on the Supreme Court, or one of the justices of the Supreme Court, just looked at the city attorney's office guy and just looked at him and said, "Sir, it sounds like you're trying to erase the black experience in the United States."
I remember when you told me that. I was like, "What?" I was like, "They said that?"
Yeah, like I couldn't quite believe that I'd heard that, and then I was like, "Well, that's a good sign because I'm not the guy that just got accused of erasing the black experience in the United States." So you know, I felt, you know, obviously, I thought that, you know, by the end of the argument, I thought we kind of had it in the bag, you know. And then a few months later, it turned out that we absolutely did. You know, we won that case 9-0, and so which was great for us, for you, obviously. You know, it unfortunately the remedy, the only available remedy was for a new trial, but you know, at that point it's what, 4 years later anyway. So, you know, I've never really seen a criminal case hurt by a delay like that, right?
But yeah, I mean, when we finally got up there and trying to go back, they just dropped it. I was like, they tried to see if I'd plea, and I was like, no.
Well, yeah, we're going to trial again. You. Yeah, and they're still going after you because they tried to issue a warrant on you for a court date that they never even told you about. You know.
Facts, man. I mean, yeah, it was wild because they were trying to come for me, but I just showed up, got the warrant quashed, and then tried to get me to take a plea, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. If you guys want me, you're gonna have to come for me. I'm not gonna take I did nothing wrong. Your police tried to have me killed, and I survived, and this is why you're trying me. I'm not taking a plea on this on principle. I don't care if I get cracked over the head. I'm gonna fight this on principle because you guys try to take my life, and then they're trying to criminalize me for trying to take my life because I decided to videotape the police and speak up against them when they're harassing a youth for no reason, but they felt like it. A native youth at that. So I was like, nah, man, that was one of my mentees. I was like, nah, gonna happen. Like, I'm gonna videotape this, and then for that to turn around and be like I almost got shot. The cops pulled guns on me, and if I wasn't be able to think quick enough to comprehend, because when you go into survival mode, and you don't necessarily think it's clear. Just everything's instinct, right? But I'm able to get, they let me chalk the knife down. They can't do anything crazy in here because of all these cameras. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, I almost got blown away from that. When surviving that and getting stomped out while they're arresting me, by the way. And there's video of all this, y'all. I posted on my, if y'all want to go scroll a few posts back to the post of that, right? And so for surviving that, I get charged, tried, and tasered in court. Got a couple comrades snatched up in court. There were 3 comrades that got snatched up in court behind what happened because they said it was effing bullshit, you know what I mean? And which it was. It was literally one of the most ridiculous cases. I read a lot about the Panthers, right? And it reminded me of their trials. I'm not trying to pump myself up, but it was really that ridiculous, you know what I mean? And I was like, wow, I didn't think this was gonna happen this late in history right now. This is wild, but I should have known better and expected worse from the system because it does not care. And so to go all the way there, it was wild. And also the after effect, because I changed the law, it was I was lawyer famous. All these lawyers were oh, I know you. I know who you are. I read about your case.
Yeah, it was game changing. The rule in Washington after your case, was that if prosecutors going to strike the last person of any race, of any race off the jury, so like if they're going to strike the last black person, last Latino person, last Asian person, any of the not just the last person of color, but like the last specific member of a racial group, then that was presumed to be racially discriminatory, and they had to come up with a race neutral reason for it that the court would then have to actually critically evaluate. And so that kind of kicked off this really big change in jury selection in Washington, where essentially now there's just like there's a court rule about it where basically all these historically pretextual reasons I talked about earlier, like negative experience with the police, being inattentive, having family members who have been incarcerated, all those pretextually but still racist reasons aren't allowed for jury strikes anymore. So to that end, it's it's just a lot harder for prosecutors to kick off people of color now. It's other than actual bias or something like that. It's really, really hard now. And it's, I think that it's improved the odds for defendants. I know it's improved the odds for defendants because the research is really, really clear that when there's black people on the juries, black defendants do better.
Facts.
And that's just like not, it's just not debatable. But yeah, no, it's really, so it's really cool that kind of kicked off a really big change in how juries function. Obviously that's, it's obviously still like a really terrible part of the criminal legal system that's designed to, crush everyone. But it's nice that that's a little bit easier for people to escape the grips of that system because of this case.
I mean, and I'll be real. It didn't make me feel a lot better about standing up the way I did and then not just seeming so vain afterwards, right? Because at first, I was like, it seems kind of vain. I was like, it was on principle and stuff and like that. And I was looking to the Panthers, like when I was saying I'm gonna take my stance and I'm not gonna back down, like it'd be uncompromising. I was definitely looking to the Panthers when I was doing those actions, but to see that it had repercussions that affected people positively, both of our actions, right? Because I don't think if I would have not made a big deal about it, I don't think it would have gone back on that appeal, to be real with you. If I didn't make it so obvious what was going on, I don't think they would have ever took it. You know what I mean? Because I definitely did a lot to make it obvious. Like, no, you're being racist as fuck, bro. Like, this is bullshit. This whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, you raised the issue to me when we first met about it. Like that was because otherwise a lot of times on appeals, unless someone specifically says, "Hey, there's a big problem in jury selection," sometimes it doesn't even get looked at. And so yeah, I mean, and just to say, like, just to emphasize the positive aspect, it's, it was like a really, really, really game-changing decision. And I know that you heard that from a lawyer that weren't me a few times.
But I owe a lot to you, to be real with you. I mean, I didn't have no money to pay you or nothing, and you just did it out of love because we had known each other and we built together. And man, it was fire. I hope it helped your career too.
Well, actually, I went back. I actually wound up, by the time that your case came back down, and that his decision had been issued, I was actually working for the public defender's office. I know that I got transferred out before I could try and retry your case. But it was it definitely. I think I can't help but think that I think it helped. It's always good to get the big win, to peak early, I guess, right? To get the first big win and then just kind of coast from there.
I mean, it was crucial. It was crucial. I mean, I think everything had to happen the way it happened too, because I feel like from you coming in at the perfect time you came in, but even also like I said, the way I interacted with it during the trial, I mean, because I think some of the things, like if you looked at that trial, there's no way you can be like, this isn't racist. Like, not realistically.
No,
not realistically.
I mean, it's just absurd that the case got brought to begin with. It's just absolutely it's just, there's not, you were literally being attacked. It was preposterous.
And to give context, the actual charge, y'all, was about having a specific knife that they made up definition. They said gravity assisted. It was a regular pocket knife, right? And they had this like brass knuckle guard type thing, but it wasn't real brass knuckles because it wasn't a solid piece. It was like, it just looked like brass knuckles, right? Which was an intimidating factor that helped save my life, by the way. Like if the people weren't intimidated by that, they would have busted my head wide open. You know what I mean? Without a question. Now, there's no way I can fight. I'm big, but I can't fight 15, 20 people. It's not possible. You know what I mean? Yeah. I am not a Super Saiyan. I can't go go Super Saiyan level 3 and be like, now what you want? You know what I mean? It's not really gonna happen that way. So I think it was a big part of it was the fact that nobody seemed to really care how egregious everything was inside the court system. Now there are people who activists cared for sure, but like it was kind of wild because even when I went to trial on that, like people were acting like the fact that people were acting like I was in the wrong somehow. I was like, how? Like you're charging me with a knife charge for a legal knife, like 100% legal knife, and you're making up definitions to try to make it sound illegal. And because there are gravity knives, but it wasn't a gravity knife. They made up this idea, gravity assisted. You mean like I remember Ed said, he was like, oh, you mean like when you jump up and you fall back down and you're gravity assisted staying on the earth, right? Like, like what? But
yeah, and it was, and I mean, like, it's also just insane that, they're trying to get you for a knife when like there's there's people carry knives like all the time, literally all the time. Like it's just such an insane application of the of that statute, of that law. Like it's like they want to make, I mean, it's another way that they selectively enforce it, it's because like that everyone carrying a knife isn't getting charged, right?
Facts.
Like it's
Facts.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, and this is one of the reasons I'm such a proponent against gun control. Whenever it's like gun control, is I'm like, it's the offshoot of that. It's the idea of gun control was made to disarm black people, and what was happening with that knife, trying to disarm black people. Like I shouldn't have been armed, even though that's the only reason I was alive. There's no other reason I'm still here, but that. Nobody helped me. Nobody came in to assist me. Nobody put their car in the way. Like I'm going across streets, and people are making space to let the mob chase me. Like they're making.
This is like from Westlake to Pacific Place, and that's like a couple blocks.
Yeah, it's a couple blocks, exactly. 2 blocks of like backing away from a crowd of people,
and like busy blocks, like busy,
Yeah, and you think, I mean, everybody knows 2 blocks ain't that far, but when you're being chased by 20 people, 15, 20 people, it's a long ways. That is a long ways to go, and to make it there on top of that, and oh no, it was wild, but. At the same time, all that to be able to help so many other folks still have this case be able to use to help people almost seems worth it. Almost.
I mean, the better solution was that we wouldn't have had to deal with any of this.
Yeah.
But, I will say I agree with you, though. I think you did handle it. You handled it the right way. Because like otherwise it's another case that just kind of gets processed through the criminal legal system and that would be forgotten about, right? But the way the fact that you decided to fight it out on principle, I think was, that was what really got us to where we got with this case,
Yeah, fight on principle, and I was also so blatant about it, like I mean, I was being very vocal the whole trial, like no, this ain't cool.
Yeah, absolutely,
And don't get it wrong, that's part of why I got tasered, because I was so vocal during the trial. That's part of why I got tasered. I got tasered with my hands up, mind you. Right? My hands were in the air, and they tasered me to my back. So, mind you. Now...
Well, what's wild is that wasn't even what they wound up granting the appeal on. Like, they didn't even... they weren't even going to talk about... Like, they didn't even want to hear about the knife issue. They didn't want to hear about the taser issue.
It's wild, too. Like... apparently, everybody thought they had shot me because the taser cracking things was so loud or whatever. I was like, nah, he didn't shoot me. Luckily, but they did taser me to my back, which was a fun time. But I'll also, everybody just is out there. If you got any questions, sound off any questions. We can answer questions too. So I know everybody's been kind of quiet in the chat, so just Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna get the mic over. But so man, I mean, I'm still the thing about are you trying to deny the black experience? I never expect that from a Supreme Court judge, though.
Yeah,
Never.
I had to like double check it, like check with like the other people at the table. I was like, did I hear that right? Like, is that what she said? You know, it was but that's also like a pretty good sign that it was gonna go our way in the end. That's a pretty good sign that it was gonna go our way. But yeah, it was a wild ride, you know. But you know, in the end, I'm glad that we got the right result for you, and we did a hell of a lot for a lot of other people. Um, Actually, you know, it's kind of it's kind of messed up, but it's also kind of nice. On the other hand, I think so. The rule that the law that they announced in your case about striking the last person of a racial group off of a jury panel, that was based on an earlier case called State versus Roan. In that case, the defendant Roan had made the same argument, but they rejected it. Um, but they just I want to say just maybe 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court came out and granted him a new trial too, based on the fact that they had adopted his argument in your case. You know, after rejecting it just a couple years prior. So it's kind of a nice little full circle moment there.
I mean, I'm real. It makes me mad happy that people are getting at least better trials. I mean, mad happy as people having to go to trial will be, but like
Right.
that is a little less damaging and a little less harmful.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing about all this, you know, about like, I mean, just like reforms in general is that like, you know, it can it can help out a little bit, you know, it can make situations better for people, but it's not what we need. You know, it's not going to solve the fundamental problem of like of prisons, of cops, of judges, of courts. Like it's, you know, but on the other hand, it's great. It is great that this decision really did help a lot of people to kind of is helping a lot of people survive that system a little bit better.
Yeah, real talk. And I'm glad it has that impact because it wasn't the funnest experience. But
No, yes.
why did those random teenagers surround you if you were just police watching? How could it concern them? Well, there's a couple of things, right? So it was the community policing officers, so they come and try to make different stances in relationship with the youth that they harass and arrest and so on and so forth. So that was a part of it, but also they would like gave them something out of their trunk. I don't know what they gave them. Another thing I found out from somebody else who knew one of the youth who jumped me is or tried to jump me literally was that they had got a days of immunity because everybody on that block are people who sell drugs pretty much. So they gave them a day of just being able to do whatever they want without arrest. So that was one of the parts of it. And you know, one of the things was I was cop watching, but I'll be clear, I call cops pigs to their face. I'm not going to never deny that, and I'm not sorry for it. Like I said, I looked at the Panthers, and I respect how the Panthers handle it, and I kind of mimic that. So when I'm arguing with these cops and they're having like, I'm calling them pigs to their face. So if you have a problem with that, then I guess I'm just not the channel for you because I will never stop doing that until the day I am in the grave. Because F that, man. That's like they literally kidnap us for a living. But that's all I know about why they made that choice. I think street kids are very easy to manipulate a lot of times. A lot of times they're like some of the most marginalized people, and then they don't have a lot of people that are been in the streets to like teach them the way things that are right from wrong. A lot of times they're just kind of on their own. People who just got thrown aside, so they do what they think is right, which sometimes makes them make bad mistakes, or not even right, but is beneficial. It's same group of people has done trans bashing and other things like that. And I'm not going to go too deep into that because it's not my experience to share, but I know people that they've done serious harm to. So it's complicated. Like things isn't as simple. What? I should call them roaches. I actually like pigs. But yeah, no, I think it's important to see that cops do this all the time. Like to give examples, man, they used to do it in Oakland and Compton and stuff. I know people who came from there. I didn't come from there, so I'm gonna be clear. I'm not grew up in Oakland or Compton, but I have homies that did. And one of the things they used to do is they used to pick people up and drop them off in enemy neighborhoods. They used to manipulate people's enemies to be able to attack them all the time. It's a normal tactic that they use, unfortunately. And I think you kind of have to be in the streets to understand that. You know what I mean? But it is something that happens a lot. Now, would I have been in their shoes in those kids? No, never. I would have never done that. Cops asked me to beat somebody up. I'm just not beating them up. Even if I was going to beat them up before, now I'm not going to do it because you said what? I'm not siding with you, motherfuckers. It's like no, not happening. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of wild, but it was what it was. You know what I mean? I can't get into people's head more than what I saw happen. You know what I mean? It's not a choice I would have ever made, so I can't relate that how they thought about that or comprehended what they were thinking in their head or what their comprehension of their manipulation was, because I mean, it's one of the reasons I'm really against community policing officers. Everybody's like, that's the answer. No, it's not, because what happens is they end up manipulating the people they are already oppressing to do things that they wouldn't normally have done, because they can promise them immunity. They can give them drugs. They do it all the time, supply them with drugs them damn selves. The cops are not clean. These cops don't think that cops are at all clean, and they break the law all the time. You know what I mean? It's all I gotta say. The cops break the law all the time and use their impunity to manipulate people. Not to mention that the two cops that did that are part of the problematic 44, which problematic 44 was people that were the cops being investigated by the DOJ, which nothing ever came of course. And so they're part of the problematic 44 because they had other complaints about brutality and violence. So, yeah.
Well, hey, I actually gotta get running.
Okay.
I gotta check out, but hey, great to talk to you. Always a pleasure to see you. Hit me up when you're back in town next month, okay?
All right, for sure. All right, it was good to have you.
Hey, thank you so much. Have a good one.
Yeah. All right, peace. So, yeah, I mean, if there are any other questions that y'all want to ask before we cut out, I know it's kind of a short one. I didn't know how long Phil was gonna be with us. Yeah, but I got a couple more things I guess I could say, respond to. The only reason I hesitate around calling cops pigs is when I consider what nice animals pigs are. I mean, domesticated pigs are nice, but if you ever seen a wild boar, oh man, oh bad. My thoughts too. So yeah, so I guess that's the story. It's been kind of short. But if there's any more questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. So I'm gonna give y'all a second, and then if you don't, then we'll go ahead and wrap this up with a short little hour dialectic. I mean, I know no EJ, no Luna, but it was it was good stuff. It was good stuff. It was good to be able to share this experience with you and talk to my comrade Phil. And I've been over to Phil. I wish he would talk about the shovel party and stuff, but we didn't really. I guess he didn't have time for that, so that's fair enough. Which, the other examples of police brutality was the shovel party, but. All right, don't seem to be any questions. So thank y'all for tuning in. Feel free to share this video so people can get a little hip to what happened. And also, we talk about how my case changed Washington history. You know what I mean? Talk about how standing up can make impacts even if you don't see it right away. All right, I'm gonna catch y'all later. Deuces. Oh, I should wait. I should end broadcast first before I hit deuces because I know it takes a second.